Surviving the Survivor. We bring you the best guests in all of true crime. Don't forget to subscribe and smash that like button. Here's your host, Emmy Award-winning broadcaster, Joel Waldman.
What's up, STS Nation? Welcome to another episode of Surviving the Survivor. They keep coming. They don't stop, and that's because we've got a lot of crazy, violent people in this world committing some pretty crazy crimes, at least here in the United States, but elsewhere as well. It is the podcast that promises to bring you the very best guests in all of true crime. I got to tell you, behind the scenes, it has been insane the last couple of hours. We've got breaking news on two fronts. We're going to be discussing the Alexander brothers tonight, the now infamous Alexander brothers. We had reached out to the state attorney's office here in Miami-Dade County. Catherine Fernandez Rundle is her name. She's been here like 30 years. And we obtained some video, including dash cam video, of some of the victims related to the state charges. And you're going to hear them in their own words. Separately, coming back at 9 o'clock is going to be the Professor Joe Patudo. Donna Adelson had what was supposed to be a very short hearing, and she wasn't even going to be there. And then it turns out she testified and gave some wild testimony about two inmates who had all the goods on Katie Magbanawa, to which Judge Everett said no go, at least not right now. So we're going to break that down at 9 with Tim and Joe Patudo. And nerves are frayed because it's been wild, but we're going to take a deep breath and we are going to cover the Alexander brothers. I don't have the official bios because it's been so hectic, but you just know her as the Professor, no Marianne or anyone else. The Professor Joe Patudo. She is the Professor Emerita at the University of Nebraska School of Law. And then Anna Sonoda, who is a licensed clinical social worker. And you see right next to her, one of the more important books you can get called Duck, Duck, Groom. The book is Duck, Duck, Groom. Check it out. And here we go. So Joe Patudo, the bottom line here is that Miami-Dade prosecutors, and obviously the brothers now, the brothers Alexander, they are in New York, to be precise, at Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn. You're taking a look at them right there. And the bottom one is the father in the blue suit. But we're hearing today on these video recordings that were released to us, and I think one other media outlet, statements from three different victims, all Jane Does, not identified, describing some really violent sexual encounters allegedly committed by Oren and Alon. And the videos now are a part of the state's criminal case against the Alexander brothers. But as I said, they're also facing serious, equally serious and more serious charges on the federal level in New York City. So Joe Patudo just, and by the way, Ildiko Tabori, Dr. Tabori, is going to join us in about 10 minutes. She is a psychologist based out of Los Angeles, California, where these brothers did a bit of business. So Joe Patudo, the state making it clear that these videos are now going to be part of the state's case. And we know that when Tal Alexander, the third brother, was arrested here in Miami Beach, they were all arrested separately in Miami on December 11th. But while that arrest was going on, they raided Tal's apartment and they found, quote unquote, trophies, videos of them actually in the acts, apparently, of committing these crimes. So that first and most obvious question, Joe Patudo, I mean, how damning is video evidence versus, witness testimony that is not corroborated with video evidence?
Well, obviously, it's much more compelling and much more damning, depending on what's said and what's shown on the videos. Because witness testimony, no matter how credible the witness is the jury listening to somebody's rendition of what occurred. Videos are the jury looking at the direct evidence themselves, not through the filter of the witness telling you. So they don't have to question, Did the witness hear it right? Did the witness see it right? Was the witness in the right place to see and hear? They get to see it themselves. And they also hear it from, the proverbial horse's mouth, which also is more damning to hear it from the individual himself. So if the videos directly involve some of the elements of the crime or some of what the victims say they went through, and they're clear, they're going to be incredibly damning.
Mm. Anna, I have to agree with you on that one. Joe Patuto. I'm looking for this comment here because it's interesting. So Brooklyn Rules, getting a little wild, saying that the father should be arrested for wearing that blue suit we just saw on the photo. So that part might not be true. However, it brings up a very interesting point, which I want to get to right away. We're talking about a set of twins, Oren and Alon, a third brother, Tal. Now, there is a fourth brother named Niv, N-I-V, who is apparently a super nice guy. He is married to the heiress of the Carnival Cruise Lines company, kind of doing his own thing. Back to the father. Is this nature, nurture? In your opinion, how do three brothers, including a set of twins, emerge from one family with this kind of behavior?
Well, I would argue that this was a game to these guys, and this is how they entertain themselves. This is how they enjoyed their time and how they felt sexually powerful and strong and desirable. And we all know that that is absolutely abhorrent behavior. And unfortunately, in this family, these three men, I hasten to call them men, but these three males were using their power and their status. Everything I read said that this even harkened back to as young as maybe when they were even in high school. So these boys, these men, never learned how to properly respect women, and it shows in their behavior and these alleged cases.
Yeah. Now, a lot of times, when Anna, when we're talking about grooming, I see it, more with maybe younger people, and over a longer period of time. In these cases, we had a victim on who said that Oren slipped into her Facebook direct messages and then invited her to dinner. And when she shows up, there's 10 other women. And then eventually they end up at a party. How does grooming, which is sort of your expertise, intersect with this kind of behavior? In some cases, they were sort of courting the women via emails or phone calls. In the particular case where we had the one victim speaking out, Maria, it seems like it happened, he was flirting with her on Facebook and then invites her, but it wasn't a very long exchange. So where do you divide the line between grooming and just, SA and the R word?
Well, I think I would begin by reminding your listeners what grooming is. Grooming is a perverse form of courtship, and it has 4 F's: flattery, favoritism, forbidden fruits, and fear. Now, in this case, we see very clearly that one of the designations is that so far, the cases that I'm aware of, these women were above the age of consent. The age of consent is a very low barrier, in my opinion, and many others who work in this field. So does grooming exist after the age of consent? Yes. Think about situations in which you're vulnerable, maybe a college campus where a professor can use their power and authority on campus. Think about your first job. Think about your first apartment. These opportunities where young adults are possibly in environments where they don't have their safety and securities around them. They don't have other people who are vetting the individuals they're coming in contact with, the individuals they're going on dates with. And it was very easy to see in this case how flattery took place, as you were just saying, flirting online, making these women feel beautiful and worthy of their attention, and saying to them, oh, you are outstanding. I want you alone over all these other women. And then dangling baits, these lures, as they call them, the luxurious experiences, the travel, the adventures. And to a certain type of woman, that's possibly a bait that's going to work. But I think we'll find as we continue this conversation that certain elements of this case highlight the vulnerability of individuals who are on things like dating apps and social media.
By the way, this is all coming out the same day that Harvey Weinstein was whining before a judge in Manhattan. He's on Rikers Island awaiting trial, and he told the judge, and he was crying through part of it, I believe, look, you got to give me my trial right now because I'm going to die by spring if I stay in Rikers. And the judge said, sit your ass down. You're going to wait your turn for a trial like everybody else. So it's not happening until April. I just thought it was kind of ironic and interesting that he's in court, Weinstein whining on a day where this is coming out, because these actions certainly have consequences. I just want to take a moment to thank the COE. She really rolled with me and is putting all the elements you're about to see together. She's always there. And Steve Cohen, otherwise known as Meave Moen, he's rolling with us, booking guests. We're basically CNN, Court TV, Fox News combined into one with 4 people. So if you like the content, please hit that like button. Please subscribe. That goes a long way. And you can support us on Patreon, which would be very much appreciated. We're putting out a show at night. At least tonight we're doing 2. And it does take a lot of work. And I'm hoping eventually we are going. There's other people behind the scenes. I can't mention them all. But eventually, hopefully, we are going to broaden up. And I was getting there. I just got my Space Coast shirt. He's doing double editing tonight. But COE, if you can put up the link, I got my Space Coast shirt. I was too crazed today. I'll wear it tomorrow. But it is a cool shirt. Guy likes the Grateful Dead, and it is a tie-dye looking shirt. So there you go. You can get all that and more on the website or on the channel or somewhere. So Joe Patuto, Judge Caproni, she is the judge, the federal judge. So there's news on 2 fronts. The videos are from the state, but today the judge said, the brothers were supposed to have a hearing today, all 3 of them. They then asked that it be continued on to February 12th. They need more time because apparently they were switching out some of their attorneys or looking for counsel in New York City. So they asked, hey, can we have our next hearing on 2/12, February 12th? And the judge said, no, you better be ready by February 5th. And then we learn in a letter from Howard Shrebnick, who is the Miami criminal defense attorney, that he has been replaced. He is one of the Miami attorneys who's been replaced. Joe Patuto, when I spoke with him and others, he said that every single accuser is lying, and I couldn't believe what he was saying. So another reporter followed that up, and he followed up by saying every single one of them. That was his direct quote. Today we find out that he's no longer part of the defense team. Is it possibly that, or is it more a geographic issue where he's in Miami and the brothers are stuck with Diddy and Sam Bankman-Fried and Luigi Mangione in New York, so it's just too hard to do business that way? Is that what do you think's behind the firing?
Well, I do think that the geographical issue is part of it, but I don't think that's exclusively it. I think they want maybe you'd consider this part of geography. They want lawyers in New York lawyers who know the territory, who know the judges, who know the prosecutors, who know how the system goes. I also think they want more high-powered lawyers who've done more of these cases. I heard that little, that walking interview or what it was, Joel, that you did, and I was flabbergasted that that's what he would say, that he would go out and ahead of the evidence, ahead of anything, and attack the victim, the witnesses who have come forward, even without knowing. He couldn't have known what they were going to say or what the full extent was going to be of what they would say, nor did he know whether other witnesses would come forward. So that kind of, sort of assessment of the way you're going to go outside the courtroom, I think might give a client pause about what kind of defense you want to maintain within. So the short answer is I think it's both, but I think most of it is they wanted lawyers who do criminal work in New York, are familiar with the federal courts there, and know the way things work there.
Yeah. I mean, Joe, one of the $64,000 questions is, if this goes to trial and there's no plea deal, how much time do these brothers serve in the federal system? I spoke to Tommy Scoville, who's a former inmate. He's emphatic that these guys are there for possibly the rest of their lives, if not at least 60 years or so. Hello to Ildiko Tabori, doctor to me. She is a psychologist based out of LA, and I can't even tell that's a dog, not a cat, right? I think last time it was a cat. A dog's a dog. What's a dog? What's a dog? We are very dog friendly. What is the dog's name?
His name is Johnny Carson.
Very LA of you. Dr. Tabori, we're getting to you in a moment, just so you know who you're talking to. It's Joe Patuto, law professor emerita at the University of Nebraska, and Anna Sonoda, licensed social worker, who has a book out called Duck, Duck, Groom. But Joe Patuto, what's the bottom line with time that's going to be served here if it goes to trial, in your opinion? This is not a 15 years and they're getting out with 42.
The federal system has a grid system, which looks at, you get points for each crime. You get points for the circumstances in which the crime was committed, whether you're a repeat offender, whether the victims were especially vulnerable. There's a whole list of things that the judges use to assess what the penalty is going to be. And here, I think there are more than 40 victims who have come forward so far. Is that right?
Yeah, 42 right now.
All right. So they're not going to, at least I would be extraordinarily surprised if they did it. They're not going to charge all 40 and handle them in one trial. That would be incredibly difficult for everybody, including the jury. And so there will be some limit on, assuming that they're convicted, on the extent to which the grid will allow a judge to consider the crimes that were not charged. But there is a possibility within the grid to make that sort of assessment, because it's going to be the circumstances of the crime that will come in. So I will confess, I have not looked at that grid in years, but given what these crimes are, the number of victims, the serious nature of the crimes, the fact that they conspire together, I think a very, very long sentence is certainly very possible, probably more likely than not.
Now, I never noticed this, but everyone in the chat is talking about the brothers' unusually small feet. You know what they say about small feet and small hands. Dr. Ildiko Tabori, I don't want to be crass, but we were talking before you got on. Is this a nature versus nurture? Maybe it's a physical limitation, if you get what I'm saying. But what do you think, Dr. Tabori? I mean, you've got, and I was just asking Anna this, you've got 3 brothers out of 4. The 4th said to be a really nice guy. The other 3, a set of twins and an older brother, and the 3 of them are accused of these horrific sex crimes. What is going on in this family dynamic, Dr. Tabori?
Yeah, I mean, that's a very good question, and I'd be really interested in that, because usually when you have instances like when you have sexual predators, they're usually operating on their own. I'm not saying that that's always the case, but a majority of the time. So this is a little bit bizarre that there's not just 1, not just 2, but 3 of them who are colluding together. I mean, I would never think of calling my sister and saying, hey, let's create some scenario and weave men into our web of deceit. I mean, this is not something that people do in tandem with each other. So I don't know what these dynamics are. I don't know, what fed into it. These are, wealthy, good-looking young men who may have grown up never hearing no for anything. I want those sneakers, Mom, to, not hearing women say no to them. And so they just kind of took charge of that.
Joe Patuto, hop in real quick.
Yeah, I just have a quick question.
Yeah.
Does the fact that they're twins have any impact on what you're saying? Twins that are siblings as compared to family members more generally?
Yeah, again, it would probably be the same response because I honestly don't know. We haven't seen something like this. We had, if you go way back to, I think it was the 1970s here in Los Angeles or in California, you had the Hillside Stranglers, which were cousins, but who were colluding. But
Right.
it wasn't siblings, so it's
Right.
a bit new.
In that case, one of the cousins was clearly the alpha male driving it, and the other one, was really a follower. I mean, it was not equal at all. This one, I mean, I don't know a lot about this because there hasn't been a lot, out in media yet, but there doesn't seem to be anything right now that I've seen that suggests that you have one real leader and then two others that followed along to be part of the group.
Yeah,
I don't want
I mean,
to.
yeah, that
Yeah,
seems like that would be the case. Sorry about that.
no, not at all. Not at all. So, Anna, to you, and I apologize, I did not mean to interrupt there, but Anna, to you, this attorney, I wish we had the sound, but we don't. But again, I asked Howard Shrebnick, who's here in Miami, and his partner is arguably the best criminal defense attorney in the country, a guy named Roy Black, who's handled many, many high-profile cases, as has Howard Shrebnick. But when I asked him, I was taken aback by his answer. He said, every one of these accusers, first of all, I refer to them as victims. He immediately corrected me to say accusers, which I get. But he then said every single one of them is lying, and then went on to say it's just all a cash grab. I understand there's a job to be done, but we had two attorneys on last night who said, look, they're not going to file cases or defend clients like this because they have a moral high ground, a moral compass. But what about like men in power, in this case, a defense attorney, basically, victim shaming, saying, hey, they're all lying. I mean, I get that it's part of his job, but he could have responded with a better answer, I think.
Yeah, and I would say that we are actually missing the real term, which is survivors. And the clip I saw, he was blaming them for not coming out earlier and holding on to it. And I think what we need to remember, and what your audience needs to remember, is that most survivors of whether childhood sexual abuse or sexual assault, we have a very large disconnect between the events that happen and seeking and receiving justice in the criminal system, the criminal justice system or the civil justice system. So we have to remember that we cannot and should not put out into the wavelengths of your listeners this idea or this concept that if you hold on to something like this for 8 years or 13 years, that means it didn't happen. No. Actually, we see that more times than not, survivors of sexual assault, and we know this to be true for children who've endured child sexual abuse, rarely tell. In the United States, the average age of first disclosure of childhood sexual abuse is 52. So I don't have the stats right now on sexual assault in adults, but the same is probably true. These women are being re-victimized, re-assaulted by having an attorney who is just going for the jugular here.
Yeah, and I mean, to Joe's point, at least 42 women have come forward. I don't think we'll see that many testify, but the federal government has already said there's many women planning to, including the person we spoke to, Maria, who's I think living in this area down in South Florida, but will be up in New York, I guess, when she's subpoenaed to testify. We do have a new channel here. The issue of twins I want to get back to, but we have this True Crime Talk. We just launched it this week, modeling it after sports talk radio, political talk radio, whatever, without the politics, obviously. But it is going to be a place where all the best guests are hosting their own shows on different true crime topics, and we're building it out slowly but surely. But Ildiko, to you, there was an interesting comment that basically that twins, their whole lives are kind of, doted upon because they're special, they're different, they're unique. Is there truth to that? I never thought about that.
I think that is within a family dynamic. So, I mean, you can have twins who were completely neglected by a parent. So I think it's just the family dynamic, especially, in a case like this as well. And in this case, they probably were doted on.
Yeah. By the way, there's a crazy story that I was watching with the COE last night with Bill Burr, my favorite comic, and Billy Corgan of the Smashing Pumpkins. You have to Google that. You can read up on it, but it's a wild story talking about twins. So Joe Patuto, there's one other bit of legal news. And then again, if you're just joining us, we reached out to the Miami-Dade State Attorney's Office, and they have provided us with some video that has gone public of some of these alleged victims speaking to law enforcement. I'm going to play those in a moment. We also have video of Oren speaking on a YouTube channel. And we got that from someone in STS Nation. I always say best guess, better community. So if you guys have any info ever that you want to get to me, survivingthesurvivor@gmail.com. But the other bit of legal news today, there's going to be an interlocking appeal. In other words, Joe Patuto, the three brothers are going to once again try to appeal their detention order. There's already shot down. By the way, this is a letter from Howard Shrebnick, and you see there for Roy Black and Shrebnick there. And in this letter, Howard, the attorney, states that he is no longer going to be part of the defense team. He also talks about how the trip up to New York City from Miami included stops in Oklahoma City. So that probably wasn't a very pleasant ride, kind of a circuitous route. But Joe, the three are going to appeal this detention order. Like Diddy, they were offering up $100 million something per brother, which, by the way, a lot of people say they don't have that kind of money. But what's going to happen there? I can't imagine that now, a second time or third time, I can't keep track because they tried it here too, that now a judge is going to say, okay, you can go sit in your New York City apartment.
No, it's going to be denied. An interlocutory appeal, typically in a case, you can't appeal anything until everything is done. So you can't, in the middle of a trial, say you didn't like this ruling, you want to get it resolved right away. You wait until the end. In interlocutory appeal, there are certain things that the system allows you to take up, even though the whole case isn't final. This is one of them. I would be extraordinarily surprised if it's granted. There have been two different judges, as I understand it, who've already reviewed the record and denied bail, and their decisions are given great weight, extraordinary weight on appeal. I don't see that there's an abuse of discretion here. And so, if you've got the money, you take the shot at it, but they're going to be in jail.
That is for sure. And Joe, before I forget, I mean, realistically, the feds move very quickly, but when does this go to trial, if it does go to trial?
I don't know. Maybe 6 months to a year. These law firms have lots of lawyers, lots of clerks that they can hire to work for them. They can hire investigators. To the extent some of the discovery is already done, they have it. In the federal courts, you don't get much discovery. So it isn't though they have a lot of preliminary work to do in terms of interviewing others. So I think they can do it fairly quickly.
By the way, tomorrow night, we're joining forces with Jury Duty Podcast, doing a show on a missing woman named Mamta Bhatt out of the Washington, D.C. area, Mamta Bhatt. Her husband is arrested on murder charges. She is still missing, and they're going to come on and break that down. And then 7 o'clock, we're doing two shows tomorrow night. I don't know if you heard about this whistleblower, this OpenAI whistleblower. He was 26 years old, found in his San Francisco apartment, dead. And when you hear the details, it does not sound like he's the one that did it to himself. And this has crazy, potential repercussions and different entities that may have been part of this. The guy's name, may he rest in peace, is Suchir Balaji. So 5 o'clock at a 7 o'clock show tomorrow. Now, there are three victims on these tapes that the state attorney's office here in Miami-Dade County released yesterday and today. We don't know if there's more, but at least for now, they have released three of them. The first video is, and I'll be honest, I don't know if this is victim 1, 2, or 3 because they didn't give them to us in that order, and there's no way to know because they're Jane Doe's. But victim 1, and again, I don't know that it's the one I'm about to play. She is claiming that on New Year's Eve, which is obviously a huge party night, 2016, she was allegedly AR'd by these brothers. She says that she was invited by Alon to a barbecue at a Miami Beach condo. When she arrived, she found herself with Alon, Oren, and Ohad Fisherman, the friend of these three. And Ohad pushes her down and puts his knees and hands on her shoulders while the twins take turns with this woman, which is beyond depraved. So I'm going to play this. It's like 5 minutes long. So I'm going to find a stopping point, and then we're going to get reaction from the psychologists.
I remember feeling really stressed out that I couldn't move and I could barely speak. And I remember I started crying and I had tears going down my face. And I think now I wasn't crying mostly because he put himself inside me. I was crying more so because I felt weird. I wanted to be in control of my body and I don't know what was happening.
Okay.
So that part really stands out to me the most. And then I remember when I was crying and I had tears that I said I don't want to do this, and then he just told me to stop it and that we're having great sex and I'm going to stop. He was like, you're fucking it up. And I just remember being really confused and I didn't think that was true, and I just cried more.
I'm just going to stop it there. Obviously, they distorted this woman's voice and obviously have her pixelated, and it's a little tough to hear. You can boost the audio some, but she's basically saying that she felt out of control of her body. She wanted to feel in control, and that I think she was saying it was Oren was saying to basically shut up because this was amazing sex. Dr. Eldiko Tabori, this stuff is hard to listen to, but I think it's important because you're going to hear stories like this at trial. Just her behavior from what we can see, kind of like the wringing of the hands. She seems incredibly nervous. By the way, these victims all reportedly confided in friends right away, but were too scared to go to authorities. So this small portion that we heard so far, Dr. Tabori, what do you think? Oh, I think you're muted, Dr. Tabori.
Sorry, I thought I unmuted myself. She looks very, very small and very nervous. I mean, she's got everything, and now we have the cat. Sorry. She is, holding everything in. She doesn't want to move very much because she doesn't feel safe. She feels a lot of fear in there. I mean, if you notice, she's just sitting there. It's just her hands moving, but her arms are by her side protecting her. And what she's saying is she was drugged and she didn't have any sort of control. And, sometimes when we want to maintain that level of control, we get really, really small.
That's fascinating. I did not know that. I mean, I knew that, but I didn't obviously observe that the way you did. So, Anna, I'm going to keep, playing this for a little bit. I just want to point out Ohad Fisherman, who happens to be my mother's neighbor in, of all places, Miami Beach. And by the way, the COE and I, we're going to go out tomorrow. We're going to put together, we did this for the Adelsons, kind of a lay of the land, a tour, if you will. And you'll see where these guys were committing some of these alleged crimes around the Miami area. So we're going to do that tomorrow. But let's continue to play this out. But I was going to say, Ohad Fisherman, he's only accused of sexual battery. You hear or you heard me say that he was holding her down with his knees on her shoulders while the other guys, the twins, are taking turns R-ing her, which I just can't get over. And we can ask Anna about why the brothers seem to want to be with the same person committing these crimes at the same time. But let's play this out a little bit. You might want to pick up the audio on your end. That might help.
I really felt like I wasn't being heard. And then, like, from then on, I just kind of gave up because I was like, I don't know what else to do. And then that feeling kept getting worse of like gray and fuzzy and no strength in my body. And I just don't remember anything after that until I woke up actually. And I didn't have my clothes on or anything.
So I just kind of want to slow it down just a little bit. Like I'm going to just have a couple more questions just so I can wrap my head around it a little. Just, you know, I want a little bit more details. So you guys get to his apartment and it's just the two of you. Okay, he hands you a glass of wine or do you pour it yourself? You don't remember.
I don't think I poured the glass by myself, no. I didn't feel drunk. I know the feeling of being drunk.
Right.
I didn't feel that.
Okay.
It felt like I took like a anti-anxiety pill or something.
Okay.
Let's hold it there. So, Anna, to you, right there, she says she doesn't think she poured a glass of wine. Earlier, she said she wanted to give up and that she lost strength in her body. But at the end there, she said she knows what it feels like to be drunk, and she didn't have that feeling. She said it felt more like she was on some sort of anti-anxiety medication, which, you know, makes you feel woozy and a little bit out of sorts. And I'm not saying that's what it was. That's how she describes it. Your reaction to hearing, I mean, this is tough to listen to.
Yeah, this is, like we said in the beginning, this is abhorrent behavior, and she is a very brave survivor to come forward. And these investigative interviews are quite troublesome for survivors, and we need to keep that sense of awareness as we watch this, because she's asked to do something really challenging. I would bring your attention to the idea that, as we talked about with grooming, the third stage of grooming is forbidden fruits. So in that stage, you know, sexual predators use drugs, alcohol, other substances in order to make their sexual pursuits easier. And we're seeing this all over the map with this case. We're reading about GHB, a known date rape drug. We're reading about cocaine, ecstasy, mushrooms. So these men were not only distributing drugs, they were forcing women to consume these drugs in order for them to be more vulnerable to their pursuits. And it's disgusting.
It absolutely is. By the way, this one interview goes 60 minutes. Maybe we'll do a second show, but the COE, this is what Patreon is for. It is a membership site, and if you join, the COE will put the full interviews in there. They've all been redacted and edited like this by the Miami-Dade State Attorney's Office. And again, there was an FBI agent who interviewed 40 plus victims. She gave testimony about it. This is not that woman. This is a Miami-Dade law enforcement officer. So, Joe Patuto, you're an attorney and a woman. I'm going to play a little more and get your reaction in a moment.
Okay.
I have those. I have taken all before because I have anxiety.
Okay. Were you on anything? Okay, so it's not like, okay. And then you put these goggles on, okay? You're walking around, you're having a good time, and then he approaches you and unzips the dress and removes it completely. Does he say anything while he's doing that?
He doesn't speak. He doesn't speak at all. No explanation or anything.
So when you were walking around, were you walking around in his bedroom?
His bedroom is like right next to the kitchen. It's like an open space, and we were standing by the counter, and the bedroom is like right here, and the counter's right here. So we should walk over to there.
Did he guide you? So do you think maybe he removed the dress like while you were in the kitchen and then he may have guided you, or how do you think?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's okay. Okay, so you end up on your back. You're telling him no.
I'm gonna hold it right there. She ends up on her back, and she's telling him no. She feels like she's drugged. I know you're a law professor, Joe Patuto. I guess speaking of the law, again, if this goes to trial, which is what I asked you in the beginning, and this woman is in the witness box, and a jury is, she sure sounds credible to me. She does
Yeah,
not sound, she does not sound like she's searching for details. She doesn't sound like she's having, she just sounds scared. And I mean, I'm a middle-aged guy and I am feeling for her. So I can't imagine how female jurors are going to react. But what is your reaction to watching this?
yeah, it's I have a couple of reactions to it. One of them is what you just said. It's really horrific. And you wonder, I do think there's evil in this world and there are depraved people. I don't think it's, and I think these are examples of just evil people preying on people who are more vulnerable, whom they've made more vulnerable. It's very difficult for the woman or the victim or the survivor in this situation, because what runs through your head after the fact is, I shouldn't have put myself in that position. It's partly my fault. Maybe it's all my fault because I should not have gone. I should have known better. I should have seen the signals. And lots of people in that situation spend a lot of time in blaming themselves, which only adds to the trauma and the pain, and what they're feeling about the event, which is probably shame, even though they shouldn't have it. I mean, they're victims. So that's that's one end of what I'm feeling. The other is, as a lawyer, a concern about these, because one of the things that I suspect the defense will do is to say, these, and you talked about the lawyer, down in Florida, who said they're all lying. But one of the ways they're going to make the claim that even though you have multiple women coming forward, and that corroborates, or that lends credibility, or that lends credence, is that they're all making up a story, and the stories look alike because they've been able to match them. And the concern I have with going public with some of these interviews is that makes that defense claim a little easier to make. To the extent that they were all giving this information in private and it didn't come out publicly, then the argument from the defense is, that the reason why all the details look pretty similar is because they match them, is not an argument that will work. But the more that these things become public, the harder it is. So my hope is, and I expect this is probably true, that victims that have come forward already have had their statements recorded, that they're on record before some of this is becoming public. So excuse me, Joe.
No. By the way, Nicole has asked a couple of times saying, were any of these ever reported to police? The person we interviewed, and I only can speak for her, she did file a report. And Howard Shrebnick said to me, no reports have ever been filed. Well, she has a police report and still has it. So I don't know how many others have police reports. But again, I think the testimony is going to speak for itself. To Dr. Tabori again, this is obviously a woman, I would guess like early to mid 30s. Two weird things. Number one, well, not weird things, but one thing that she said caught my attention. She said she was wearing goggles. I don't know if it was like a VR thing. Dr. Tabori, any idea what she might be talking about? Like, do you think that they would have had her looking at virtual reality? That sounds even more demented. I don't know.
I picked up on that a little bit too. I don't know if that's literal or figurative, because she might have been feeling like she was wearing goggles and she couldn't see clearly or straight. And it felt like, things are big and small and all different sizes, like you would see in goggles, like underwater perhaps. So my guess would be that it's more drug related, because that would be a little weird that you would put VR on somebody or goggles of any sort. But these are creepy men, so who knows what they would do.
Yeah. The other question I have for you, Again, she's in her early to mid 30s is my guess. When she's 65 or 70, what is this experience going to live like in her head that many years down the road?
Yeah, that depends on any kind of support that she gets. If she is getting mental health treatment, and if she does have a good support system around her, she's going to fare better than she would if she wasn't getting any sort of mental health support. It's always going to be there. This isn't ever going to go away. And again, even if she has a good therapist, she has, a good family and friends around her, it's still not, she still can get triggered and by any other traumas that come up. And it doesn't necessarily need to be something like another sexual abuse, but she could read something in a book, see something on TV, or something else could happen in her life that had nothing to do with it, and it can trigger the old stuff.
The COE coming up with probably the right answer. She was there for a barbecue at a building called the MEI, which is a luxury condo on Collins Ave, which used to be known as Millionaires Row, on the beach with a big pool. So I think she had them because she thought they were barbecuing and swimming. There you go. That could be an actual set of swim goggles. There you go. But
Okay.
yeah, that's possible. Who knows? Interesting though that she brought that up. Okay, I'm going to keep playing it, and Dr. Anna Sonoda will get the next shot at it.
Oh, I don't want to do this. The goggles, you remove them at some point.
I only remember the beginning, and I remember that part, and it was towards the end of it. After I was so stressed up until the point of crying, and then after the crying, everything kind of went downhill from there.
And then that's kind of where the memory cuts.
Yeah.
Okay. So when you wake up the following morning, you're where? On the bed?
Mm-hmm.
And where is he?
I think he was in the bathroom.
He was in the restroom.
To make myself feel better about the situation, I tried to give him a hug. I don't know why. When I left, I just didn't want to believe what I was thinking happened. I tried to
I'm going to hold it there. That, to me, that's really fascinating, Anna. She said just now that when she left, she felt like she wanted to give him a hug because she didn't want to believe what just happened. I have 2 daughters. So I'm getting the chills here talking about this. Is that typical? Because that's something that I wouldn't think, but it's almost like she's trying to play like a Jedi mind trick on herself, saying what just happened didn't just happen. This guy is actually a caring, good individual. So let me give him a hug. Is this typical or atypical?
Well, I would say this is not abnormal, especially because these relationships, if you want to call it that, grooming starts off sweetly. It starts off with flattery, with compliments. You've already addressed how these people were flirted with online. They were often sought after on dating apps. That's why people are going on dating apps. They're going to find somebody who appreciates them, likes them, thinks they're attractive, and wants to try to date them. The trouble is when we have sexual predators, they're seeking out opportunities to take advantage of vulnerable people. So in this case, we saw examples of the fact that she was isolated. When you think you're showing up to somebody's house for a barbecue, I don't know about you, but down here in the South, we would think there are probably going to be a lot of people there. And when she shows up, she's by herself. We know that she had something in her system that disrupted or distorted her memory and her awareness. So, and the following day when she goes to leave, she might think, well, the safest, best option is for me to give him a hug. And, maybe I don't clearly remember what happened. Maybe this situation was something abnormal and out of the ordinary, because again, it all started from a place of flattery and kindness and compliments.
Yeah. In the case, Dr. Tabori, of Sean Diddy Combs, I immediately called when I found out that he was doing what he's accused of doing to men. I called my mom, who's a licensed therapist, and she said it's not about the sex, it's about the power and control. What part of this is the sex? What part of this is the power and control?
I think it's 100% power and control. I mean, they can have sex whenever they want, right? I mean, again, good-looking guys with money, but this was a whole other level of power and control and collusion. I mean, these guys are working in tandem with each other. So I don't know, again, what that's about, and where this comes from, in terms of the family dynamics.
Yeah. This question too, Dr. Tabori, do you think the crying and fear of the victims is part of what they want to see as a part of wanting control? Someone earlier said it's basically a game to them, but what about this? Do they get off on the crying and the fear that they can elicit from these women?
Oh, I'm sure they can. And again, people's, desires, for lack of a better term, differ from person to person. But yeah, putting somebody in fear, absolutely. The tears, absolutely.
Yeah, twisted is all I can say. Joe Patuto, before I play out the rest of this, you're the legal eagle here. I know you're not a police officer or law enforcement, but what do you think? Someone mentioned that this room should be set up a little more warmly for victims, that it's very austere. So what do you say about that? What do you say about the interviewer here, who's obviously doing her job? Very matter of fact. Someone here said it must be hard on them because they can't sit there and really console these people. They're taking statements. The whole process is, uncomfortable.
Yeah, I felt that way about the room also, that it's a very cold, austere room. It's not, conducive to making somebody feel comfortable. It's a room that I'm sure is used when they're interviewing when they're interviewing suspects. I don't know whether they have a place that's set up. I mean, they do have in most prosecutors' offices places for children when they're interviewing younger people. The questioner, I think the questioner has to take a cue a little bit from the person giving the information. In some ways, it may be better. I know if I were in trouble and I was being questioned by somebody, I'd want them to be very matter of fact. I would not want a lot of sympathy because it would make it harder for me to tell the story. For me, it would be easier to tell the story if the person asking the question gave me a little distance. For others, I think that may be very different. So I don't know if there's a playbook for this about the right way it should be done. When I question, and of course I wasn't doing this sort of thing, I always took my cue from the person, that I was asking the questions of. But the room, I think, the chair she's in seems extremely uncomfortable. She's crossing her arm now. That may just be that, the whole interview is hard for her, but it looks like it's a cold room. I wonder if, a sweater or something. They seem to have given her something to drink. I don't know whether that's water or coffee or what. So I agree with you, Joel. The room, at least, is not where I would want if it was someone I knew who had been the victim of a sexual assault. Sorry, YouTube. This is
Yeah.
not the room where I would want her to be interviewed or ask
Yeah,
questions.
I agree with you. Shout out to McSpunky, who's donating a membership. Godzilla man says, I feel nauseous. I'm so upset for these brave women. Okay, I'm going to play out the rest of this. We've got video too of Oren, and it's interesting because when we had the victim on, Maria, she asked me not to put up photos of him because it was so traumatizing. She's not here tonight, and I hope if she's watching, which she might be, that she is okay and maybe looking away. But here we go. This is the rest of this interview.
See if he had any, I was gonna say, I'm sorry, I got out of hand there. I kind of wanted that door to open to fix it. Okay. And he didn't even hug me back. So it was really weird. Okay. It's really strange. And I just feel so embarrassed that I even tried to do that. silly.
Yeah, but it was like you said, like you were trying to rationalize it in the moment, and you figured that maybe if
You would open that
door to maybe he would be compassionate or have some sort of empathy and don't
feel stupid about stuff like this, and that's when I knew that's not like normal.
So then he ordered you an Uber and you go home. When you got home, you said that you told your sister. What exactly did you tell your sister?
I told her everything. I always tell her everything, but I think I was somewhat in denial. And she was like mad at me, but I was like, I'll be fine. Like, nothing happened. It's my fault, you know. I also didn't want to look weak. I didn't want to look like I'm usually a really strong person. Like, if a guy like touches me, I like turn around and say like something to him. I've never done actually a real true one night stand. I've always been on dates before. I'm strong and I didn't want that to be true. So then I put like a tough spin on what I told her because I wanted to be strong, but I still confided in her.
Okay.
That's the interview right there, at least our portion. Again, it was 60 minutes long. In that part, Dr. Tabori, she's saying very openly that she confided in her sister, which apparently all of these women did confide in friends or family right afterwards, but were too fearful to go to the police. You heard her say that her sister basically said, hey, no big deal. She says, I was in denial and said that she didn't want to look weak. She says that, if a guy would touch her in a public place, she's the kind of person to say something to them. But in this instance, she felt like incapable of doing that. Are these typical responses, feeling weak, feeling, I guess, ashamed and kind of in denial, like she said she was?
Oh yeah, these are very, very common responses. Along with guilt and blaming themselves. Women run the gamut of these emotions, and they often blame themselves, and they, tell somebody, and that person, their confidant, tends to have similar experiences. That they don't know what to say. They're feeling guilty. They're feeling ashamed for not being able to provide support. And then a lot of times people may back away from them because they don't know how to support the victim.
Before we go to the second victim, there are 3 that were released to us. Again, the COE is going to put these into Patreon. I'll have her put if she's able to, the full unedited version. This is a trigger warning because we're about to hear from Oren himself in his very snazzy blue suit and white Miami Vice t-shirt. Here he is, I believe, speaking about his sort of family upbringing. This is in a YouTube video from several years back about being a superstar in the world of real estate. There we
go. Your dad being in the real estate business helped you, inspired you over the course of your career?
So, definitely early on, it gave me the experience. My father being in the industry, I learned the business through him.
Was he actively teaching it to you, or were you just around him and you learned through osmosis?
So my family's approach to parenting, some parents don't talk business at the table. My parents, Shabbat dinners were, board meetings because you had my uncle who was involved in the business and so forth. So being around and just being there, I learned a lot. And my mom, even on the real estate side, my mom is the CFO of my father's real estate development company. And
so now I see where this lifestyle of live and work being the same comes into play.
Yeah,
because you grew up in a house where it was business and it was family and it was real life and it was fun all in one. And that's what you would.
I'm going to hold it right there. Dr. or Anna Sinodic, calling you doctor, she's a licensed social worker. But to you, he just said the family dynamic was Friday night dinners were the board meeting, where the mother's the chief financial officer, and they would talk real estate. What do you make of this? Does that give you any insight into this family dynamic other than they were very interested in making a lot of money, even on Friday nights?
Yeah, Jill, I think that's the thing that stands out is that they were business owners. They were trying to encourage their sons to be productive and wealthy and follow in their footsteps. And I don't think that anyone, in this country would have a negative perspective of that. What we have a negative perspective of is how this inflated ego, inflated sense of self, this larger than life, they can do everything they want with no consequences. That's the part that is showing up in these cases. And I think it's really important as we look at not only who the parents are, but who these kids are and what was tolerated in their communities. And as we talked about before, these behaviors of potentially sex trafficking were showing up in high school. So these boys were even displaying this behavior, this very troubling, abhorrent pattern of behavior of luring women and then using them as a game. And they would switch turns. I mean, this whole thing is disgusting. And I get curious if the parents had any sort of sense or sniffed out something was amiss in their close contact that they had with their sons.
Well, apparently, I don't know the mother's relationship too well, but we have a lot of friends in similar circles, or at least the COE does. I hide in my bedroom most of the day. But anyway, that's a whole other story. So apparently, the father, and I don't want to get myself in legal trouble. Let's just put it this way: he apparently mimicked, obviously the sons were mimicking, but he was engaged in some of the same sort of behavior apparently, and was just a ruthless business guy. This comment from Violet is really interesting. That's not what Oren wanted. He wanted dinners where his parents showed interest in his life. And then this by mom, not my mom. He comes off very normal there. Dr. Tabori, to you, that's also fascinating to me. We're doing the case of Corey Richins, who's accused of poisoning her husband with 5 times a lethal dose of fentanyl. And I was saying when we did the show the other day, she literally looks like a doe in headlights, like this super innocent, benign woman, like that couldn't hurt a fly. And here you see this guy, very good looking, speaking well, successful in business. And then instead of turning into Superman, the guy turns into a nightmare in the evening. Is there anything unusual about that? I mean, it's definitely a case of you can't judge a book by its cover.
What I find interesting, well, 2 things. One, he doesn't seem that normal to me. He seems really arrogant. I mean, he's sitting there and taking up a whole lot of space. And just the way he's talking. And if you look at him in comparison to the interviewer, I mean, the interviewer looks like he's like sitting in this small chair, while this guy is like, I'm really comfortable and I own this room. So yeah, I don't think that that's very normal. And there's a clear lack of empathy that he may have never developed. What I do find interesting is, what you were saying, which I didn't know, is that the father was engaging in this sort of behavior. And I'm wondering if maybe these brothers felt like they need to impress their father and do what he did. Just by how they're describing their Sabbath dinners. It's like a boardroom. It's a very achievement focused family. So achieve, and success equals money, or money equals success. And we want to impress our parents. Mom seems like she's going to be impressed, but here's dad who has this behavior for some unknown reason. It gets relayed to his sons, and they are imitating it.
Yeah. I just want to be clear. There are a lot of, stories, rumors, innuendo going around. These are stories that I've heard through friends of friends here. Apparently, the behavior towards the mother wasn't always the kindest, but I'm not, implying that he was necessarily committing crimes like the sons are accused of, but was certainly has been described as not the kindest, sweetest individual. And they've also, I've also heard that there was a lot of fixing problems for the sons ever since high school, using something called money to get out of problems. So that's not surprising either. This is going to be the end of this Oren interview. And then there's another short clip about his mentality. But here we go. This is the end of this one, talking about the family dynamic.
Adopted for your
Yeah,
life, your
and
lifestyle.
It felt natural. That just feels like, I just can't tell you how many times, and it still happens to this day, that my mom will yell at my dad and say, please, no business at the table. And my dad says, so what are we going to talk about? Like, what else can we talk about? Like, there's nothing else to talk about. And my mom always gets upset about that. But it's, it's great because it keeps us all together.
I mean, that's just sad, really sad. I mean, he's basically saying, look, my dad never talks about anything but business. Not that I have much empathy, but yeah, I mean, they weren't getting the love. There's another clip here. Now they're walking. By the way, I agree with Dr. Tabori. He has, if I saw this guy out at dinner and I was with the COE and we're at the same table, I would think he was a smug, arrogant, what. He might think the same of me. I don't know, because I don't talk that much sometimes. But anyway, here we go. Here's another clip, and then I want to play out the second victim more quickly, and we will wrap it up. Here we go.
Do a lot of deals in New York, Miami, Aspen, Hamptons. What goes into the decision to say, okay, we're
By the way, real quick, you just heard him say Aspen, the Hamptons, New York, and there are victims in all these different locations. So just to Joe's earlier point, if I'm a juror, there's no way that these women in very different geographic locations are conspiring with each other on these stories. But that's just a point that crossed my mind.
going to now do deals here, as opposed to it's just going to be another city where we refer deals to another agent?
So I guess it starts with there's a lifestyle that we like to live. So I really enjoy Aspen, and I enjoy the mountains, both summer and winter. So I definitely made sure that I can have a business there. Hamptons was also a place that I spent a lot of time in the summers. So naturally, being in the city, we progressed and we opened up the Hampton market. Miami, have a strong connection because I'm from there. So to me, that's like the ultimate lifestyle. And I definitely see LA on the horizon as well. I have another boat that I keep in the water that my brother has now, but this is like my Bahama. This is when I rip it to the Bahamas. That's what I take, and I go spearfishing on.
How long does it take?
On a flat day, I can get there on this thing in an hour.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's sick.
I'll average like 60 miles an hour. Just rip it.
It's great.
Yeah. The summertime is kind of the Bahama season. So that's what I'm doing most this month is trips to the Bahamas.
Yeah. Sick.
Yeah, it's great. It'll take you some time.
Yeah.
And then eventually I'm going to have the island, and we'll be able to
I want to live on this island.
We'll be over there for brunch.
My question is, like, you're skiing in Chile and you're spearfishing in the Bahamas and you're at Art Basel. How do you have time to sell billions of dollars of real estate?
Well, to begin with, that's why we focus on the larger transactions, as I don't want to do 150 deals a year.
Right.
I'll be happy doing 50 large deals, as they take the same amount of time, so to speak. And my travel in some ways coincides with my deals. I know when I have clients in town and when I need to be where I need to be. We've grown a very sort of light and nimble team of only about 7 of us between New York and Miami.
It's unbelievable.
And we managed to, we're always, all of us, always on. And we could have great, team sort of communication, and everyone understands their role. And that's been a key to doing this amount of deals.
Anna Sonoda. That is, I mean, I'm embarrassed to live in Miami right now, watching this, I have to say. And that is my, the COE will tell you, my biggest gripe by far it is the materialistic capital of the world. The real wealthy people in Miami, by the way, are walking around in ripped jeans and sneakers, not driving the Bentleys, but you can't avoid it anywhere you go. But that video, yeah, it's after watching that, I really don't love this guy. Let's put it that way. What is your reaction to the Miami lifestyle, that he's ripping it to the Bahamas at 60 miles an hour in his boat, that he's in Aspen, he loves the mountains, and he only works on big deals, not small deals, because that way he doesn't have to work as hard to make all that money. Sounds like he has small feet.
Well, Joel, when he started talking about buying an island, I was having Epstein flashbacks. So
Yeah.
I'm not sure who his mentors are, but this guy's clearly never been told no, as someone mentioned earlier in the show. And I think we need to remember that when powerful people with money and prestige and a reputation that is largely positive, they can often get away with things for possibly decades because no one's willing to go up against them. And I just compliment the brave survivors who have come out now to have 42. There are probably going to be more, but that's an incredible feat. And justice is on its way, I would say.
Yeah. Shout out to everybody, all the friends of the show, but especially my pal Wesley John Holmes, who I've never met, an Aussie living in Tokyo. I like saying that. So there you go. Now, victim 2, and there are 3 victims that the state attorney's office gave us, and I'm sure we will. Did police say why they released these interviews? I hope it doesn't cause future victims to fear their interviews will go public. They didn't really give an explanation as to why. Joe Pachuto, that's a great question. I mean, legally, why release these? Why do it now? The federal charges are probably going to take precedence. I know that one of the media outlets in Miami filed a FOIA, I believe, Freedom of Information Act. We did that today, and they were very quick in getting us this. But why release this? It's a good point.
Yeah, I don't know. Florida has about the broadest open records, open meetings, public access law in the country. And I don't know the extent to which some of these requests would fall under that. I suspect in Florida, because the law is so broad, that their instinct is to say yes rather than no. Whereas if you're in another state, they're gonna throw up obstacles and you have to fight harder to get at it. I don't know, because this is evidence that will be presumably relevant to the trial, and typically there's an exception under those laws for an active law enforcement investigation. I have no idea whether they think more I saw somebody say victims won't come forward, whether they think this will encourage other victims. It also raises the issue that I'm sure the defense will raise about making it hard to get a jury pool that will be objective because all this evidence is getting out ahead of time. So those are my thoughts. I don't have an answer.
Yeah. So again, I don't know the correlation. Victim 2, and I don't know if that's who I'm about to play. She says she was essayed back in October 2021. So these are much more recent cases because, again, these go all the way back to their high school days, allegedly. In this case, another woman tells police in October of 2021, Oren invites her to his home on Flamingo Drive. I got to be honest, I've never heard of Flamingo Drive, and I've lived here for 5 years, but there are these little tiny enclaves of wealth, and I'm sure that's one of them. And she describes this shift from a flirtatious interaction to an assault, starts pulling away, and as she pulls away, he starts getting aggressive, holding her very firmly, and rips off the top part of her dress. This particular interview is actually conducted in a police cruiser, Miami-Dade police cruiser, and he was using like a video conference to communicate with her. So here we go. We're going to watch this. Hopefully I'll try to play this out as quickly as possible. And then we're jumping on to show number 2, Donna Adelson, which will be a breeze compared to this. Here we go.
This is intentionally left blank. I told you there's some blank pages. We just have to show you.
That's a hot.
That's a yes?
Yes.
Okay. That is number 3 selected. I'm still going to show you the rest of them.
Okay. No, I don't know.
He's showing possible suspects here.
Sorry.
It's okay.
I don't know who that person is.
Okay. This one's left blank. Okay. Do you want to see any of them again? Do you want to see 3?
I think it was 2. But after I saw Ohan, I don't believe that it's...
So the one you said that was him was number 3. You want me to show you again?
Yes.
I'm going to show you number 3 again.
Yeah, that's Ohan.
Okay,
That's-
for sure that's him.
That's the guy who lives in my mom's
Let
building.
me mark that.
What a neighbor.
Even like the way that my like
And you, and that is his mugshot.
No, I completely understand. What's it? You said you mentioned his name.
It's Ohad. It's OHAD.
Do you know his last name?
Fisherman.
Common spelling. Common spelling like fisherman.
Yeah.
By the way, real quick, and I'm gonna play it out. It's like halfway through, but someone said she must be super uncomfortable. She's actually not in the cruiser. She's on like a computer call. That's why the computer is pixelated. It's like a Zoom call that he's having with her.
Today is the
And it's at the end. It's MAN, I believe.
yep fisherman. 10, 16, 24.
Can I ask a question? Or
Sure. Hold on 1 second. Let me finish up here. You have selected number 3 that I showed you, which was again this Ohad person you said, right?
yes.
As the individual. So I'm putting here because obviously you're supposed to sign this, but I have selected photo number 3 as the individual. I signed. I witnessed. I don't know if the detective will have you come and physically sign these documents, but okay. What is your question?
I guess kind of just like what the process is for this in terms of like, are you going to tell me if and when they are in custody?
Yes. So I will not. Again, I am.
Not you, but like someone.
Yes. I believe your assigned detective is Detective David Alvarez. I don't know if you know that. Mr. Detective, have you spoken to him?
Sorry, you're breaking up.
No problem. Detective Alvarez, have you spoken to him?
I haven't spoke to him since I met with him last week.
Perfect. Okay, so he's your assigned detective. As soon as the individual is captured or whatever happens, normally detectives give you an update on your case, and they go from there. You'll be notified also by the state attorney's office that obviously he's in custody and that they're going to obviously proceed with charges. Well, my job is done. Do you have any questions for me? Any further questions?
No.
All right. I wish you a great
Doing his job. I wouldn't say the most warm, sensitive guy, but he is a Miami-Dade sheriff's deputy doing his job there. Interesting. Dr. Tabori, her question that stuck out to me is, are you going to tell me when he's in custody? And that obviously speaks to her continued fear. How do you read that?
Oh, she 100% is in fear. She probably is staying close to home. was staying close to home and didn't want to leave and feel safe or wouldn't feel safe until he's arrested.
Anna, to you, people have been asking, all four of these guys recently got married. One woman is divorcing one of the brothers, Tal. She's made that public. Oren asked to get out of custody back in December because his wife was expecting. She had that baby. It's unreal that this is what these babies are literally being born into. But what is the deal if they're perpetrating these crimes? And we don't know if these were happening post-marriage. I just don't know. People were asking that. But what is the deal with guys like this wanting to get married? Ohad Fisherman, who literally lives in my mother's building for the 7,000th time, he was on a honeymoon in Japan. They've had a child together. He's back here. And I mean, what is the mindset if you're a predator to say, okay, let me get married and make myself look like I'm this perfectly happy married man with no issues? Is it a cover? Is that what it is?
I would say it's not unheard of or atypical to have sexual predators in committed, even married parental roles. That is oftentimes something that is societally expected. Maybe they have found individuals that they want to be with. It does not in any way nullify the crimes that they've committed. But it does show that life is moving on for these perpetrators, and they're making commitments and having children and living a normal life, whereas their survivors of their abhorrent crimes are having to deal with court cases and lawyers. And you can just imagine the disparity there between what a sexual predator gets to enjoy compared to the survivors in this case. And I do think that it highlights, when we're thinking about this case largely, it highlights that for men and women who are out seeking relationships, seeking commitment, seeking a partner, that you really have no idea who you are getting into bed with. And I think about their spouses and their partners who are learning of these charges and these alleged events, and they're really having to grapple with, wow, I've now committed to this person. We've potentially started a family, and that is a quagmire, to say the least.
Yeah. Ohad is at home. IGG is asking. He's got an ankle monitor, which Carm has seen. He's cruising around the building. It's a huge building, so there's a lot of people in there. But Carm actually has spoken to this guy on many occasions, and I've made the very bad joke that she should be glad she's 85 and not 25. But she's staying out of trouble, Carm, as far as I know. This is a reminder to talk to our daughters and warn them, your sons too. I had a conversation with my daughters very recently, and it was, I believe, Anna who said that no kid should ever have a secret with anybody other than their parents. So I'm constantly now asking, is anyone at school, an adult or teacher, trying to keep a secret? I think that's really important. Rob D'Amico, former FBI hostage rescue team, told me you've got to have a distress word with your kids. That if they use in a sentence, you know that they're in trouble. So I think that's amazing advice. Look at this. Look at this. This is a new one. Mizoram, India. Ralti, welcome. I will not dare try to pronounce your last name, but thank you for joining. I think this might be one of the first STS Nation members we see from India. So thank you for that. We are going to be doing another show in exactly 5 minutes. Donna Adelson showed up unexpectedly in court today with a whole long story. People were asking, it was not being televised by any entities, but it was on Zoom. But apparently no one was expecting this. But we'll break it down for you. Isagul is from Turkey. Thank you to you. Huge thanks to Dr. Tabori, a psychologist based out of Los Angeles. By the way, Dr. Tabori, I assume you're okay looking at your house with the fires. Everyone doing well? Okay, good. Glad to hear that. Yeah. Anna Sonoda is a licensed. Yeah, sure. I should have asked you first thing. Anna Snoda, licensed social worker, clinical social worker, and she's got a book that you got to get, and it is Duck Duck Room. Look at this, from Icigal and Turkey, 50 memberships. Wow, that's amazing. Thank you so much. I have to agree with Violet. Great panel. And Joe Patuto, she's coming back at 9. COE, you got to tell me, what do I do here? Do I end this stream because they do a redirect? I have no idea while you're telling me that. Love you, America. Love you, Los Angeles. Love you, Atlanta, Georgia, New Jersey, and of course, South Florida. Except, so yes, redirect. Does that mean I can say goodbye and end the stream? I'm going to say goodbye and end the stream. I'll probably destroy the whole show. COE? Oh, yes, COE. Dr. Tabori, I'm taking heat for ignoring your cat. I have to say, for full disclosure, I absolutely love dogs, love all creatures. By the way, Ethel almost murdered another iguana. I'll tell you guys that story another time. The iguana was faking death and lived to see another day. But cats, I like cats. I think they're cool to watch. I get really bad allergies, and I would prefer to like pet an elephant. But I do like cats. I think they're cool. I like the big cats, so don't take offense. We will see you 9 o'clock. Thank you, everybody, and see you soon.